Good morning and happy Sabbath. Well, it's only my third Sabbath back home, but it still feels a little strange, but it feels really good. It's great to be home. I love the Cedar Lake Church, and it's just great to be home. Tchad. I spent the last 8.5 months of my life there, and before I went there, I'd never heard of it. I would have said, "Who's Tchad?" Not "What's Tchad" or "Where's Tchad?" So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience there today. But first, why don't we pray? Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this good day that you've provided us with. Thank you so much that it's your Sabbath and we have rest. Please calm my nerves and help me to be able to share the work that you're doing over in Tchad with these people. And we thank you and we love you, Lord. Amen. So why did I go to Tchad? Well, I'll tell you a little bit about my background first. Let's see, 2 years ago, I decided that I wanted to give my life completely to God. I had been baptized once, but I kind of went off on a rebellious tangent, but I decided to return, much to the happiness of my mother and father. But I decided I wanted to get rebaptized, and I did. And while I was considering all this, I got in touch with the Student Missions Program at Southern Adventist University. And they have a great program there. They send out over 100 students every year to different corners of the world. And I think everyone should do it. Everyone with good motives, at least. It's just a really great experience. So I decided I wanted to serve. And I was calling different organizations and making different emails and trying to find out where I was going to go, because I had no idea. I just knew I wanted to go somewhere, serve God, and have some character building. I don't really know where. So I was thinking about the Philippines. Well, I could go to the Philippines. I've heard that's really hardcore, and they do a lot of cool stuff over there. But then they started talking to me about how you get malaria if you go to the Philippines. And I was like, ooh, I don't really want malaria. That doesn't sound good. And don't people die from that? And so I decided to look at different places. So I started looking at Bolivia, and that looked pretty cool. But one day I was talking to the lady from Gospel Ministries, and she told me, yeah, I'll send you a picture of where your office will be. I was thinking, office? This doesn't sound like a wild missionary experience like I'm looking for. So I said, well, do you have anything more primitive? And she said, well, how about we send you to Tchad? It's one of the most difficult places to live on the earth, and there's tons of malaria and parasites. And I said, okay, let's go. So by that time, I guess I'd gotten over my fear of sicknesses, sort of. I just decided I'd just go for it, and God would protect me and take care of me, and I just needed to learn how to trust in Him. All right. So, and really quick, my outfit, if you're wondering what this is called a jalabia, this green thing, and it's worn by the Muslims and others, not just the Muslims, but over in Tchad, and so that's what I'm wearing, along with this hat, which is called, I don't know what it's called, but it's made in Bangladesh, so it's not like hand-woven or anything like that. Okay, can I just wave? Okay, that means next slide. All right, so when I first got to Tchad, let's see, I had a 11-hour flight from Detroit to Paris, and then I had a few hours layover, and then I had a 3-hour flight, five hours and 45-minute flight to N'Djamena, which is the capital in Tchad. And first impressions, getting off the airport looked so trashy compared to Detroit Metro or Chicago O'Hare, any other airports you've been to. There was grasshoppers about 3 inches long, just smushed all over the ground and the walls, and I was like, what am I getting myself into? And also, the thing that hit me the most probably was the body odor. It was really intense, smacked me in the face, and it scared me a little bit there because I didn't know if everyone was going to smell like that or if I was going to smell like that after a couple months, which I probably did, but you get used to it, like anything. So that, oh, can you go back for a second? First impression. Yeah, that was my bathroom, that little grass thing for the year. Those are the walls. And my Chadian father, whose name was Pierre, he actually built that for me because they didn't have anywhere to go before I got to their house. But I gave them a little money to help them out, and so he dug a big hole, put some nice grass wall around that he wove. He made that grass wall, and so that was my bathroom, the outside. Next slide. So yeah, that's the inside of it. This is all part of my first impressions, like, what am I doing here? So that was a little brick that you move to reveal the hole, but it's good to keep covered for various reasons. All right, next slide. So I noticed, first of all, that people were very poor there. I have never been a world traveler before this experience, unless you consider Ontario world traveling, which I don't. So I'd never really seen poverty. I thought a poor person was someone who had an old car or lived in, I don't know, an old house or something like that. So I got a whole new look of that. These are some members of my family, actually. You can see one girl's knitting a little shirt there, and then the baby. They just kind of sit around in the dirt all day. That's what the kids do, unless they go to school, which about a third of them do. Next slide. And they use whatever they have. There's no choices. Like, if you're going to give your kid something to cut a mango, you probably wouldn't give them that knife. That's Adonijah. He's 5, and his mom gave him that to cut mangoes with. And so they just use whatever they have, and there's no options. You know, whatever you find is what you get, and that's what you use. There's also so many examples of this. Like, you would see a motorcycle which had broken down, but they had somehow fixed it and jerry-rigged it with a flip-flop, like holding the brake pedal on, or like an old flip-flop like attached to something. You just see so many things like that, because they can't just go to the bargain barn and, you know, find what they need. But they do have a lot of things they can get in the market, but it's all pretty poor quality, so they rig things themselves. Let's see. Oh, yes, it was very hot. That's what went along with this slide, because the cow's in the shade. But it was very hot when I first got there, and humid. It was the end of the rainy season, and all people were telling me was, it's just going to get hotter. It's just going to get hotter. You're going to die. And so I was freaking out at first, especially when I would be laying in my bed, in my hut, just sweat pouring down, trying to go to sleep. You only end up getting 2 or 3 hours of sleep at first because you're just sweating so much. But you get used to that too, and it's kind of like falling asleep in the bathtub. You know, it's kind of a nice feeling after a while. Not really. Okay, so these are some of the people. I want to tell you a little bit about the people. The things they do for entertainment is very different than the kind of things that we do. Here they're marching. They just got back from the rice fields where they picked up sticks that they're going to burn or sell, and they're just singing and marching, and they'll do that for hours. You don't really see, I mean, it's adults, it's kids, it's whoever. You don't really see stuff like that around here. So I'm kind of thinking, you know, how is that fun or entertaining or but when you don't have all the distractions like we do here, you do a lot of different things to keep yourself entertained. And they actually do have a lot of fun, and I joined in with them on some of that and had a good time. So this is Pierre and his wife Clarice, and that's who I lived with when I was in Tchad. And it was so awesome. I couldn't have gotten a better family. I hate to say it, but there's so many dishonest people in this country where I was, and I think it goes along with the poverty because, you know, when you want what you don't have, and for them, stealing isn't really bad unless you get caught. Like, you're not really a thief unless you get caught. That's the mindset of many of the people. But I was so blessed to live with this man, Pierre, and his wife. Pierre, he spoke French, and so I was starting to learn a little French when I first moved in with him. So I could kind of have conversations with him the first few months. And then Clarice, she only spoke the local dialect, which is Nangere. And it's a really interesting language. It's really hard to understand. They have a lot of syllables from the back of your throat, like "duh" and "buh," stuff like that, that you kind of wonder what they're trying to do or if they have something stuck in their throat. But no, they're speaking their language. Pierre, he was a really good role model for me over there. Like I said, he was so honest. A couple days I would leave my hut open or unlocked, and he would stay there all day while I was at work to make sure that no one went in to steal anything. He was such a dedicated hard worker. You can go to the next slide. And this is what he did for a living a lot of the year, is he made bricks. And I think over the course of about 3 months, he made over 10,000 bricks out of mud, which is a huge, rigorous process. If I had more time, I would explain it all to you. But it's such hard work. I got to help him out with that too. And after a couple days of it, I was just winded and so tired. But he does this every day, day after day. He'll even go out. He's a new Adventist, but he'll even go out Saturday nights and just work a few hours and then get up at like 4. And he's just a really hard worker. So he was being a good example to me there. It's funny. I asked him. This is just a random story, but I asked him how old he was when I first got there, and he says, 30 or 40. So that gives you an idea of what the people are like. They don't, like, time doesn't really matter because they have so much of it, because the poor people especially, because they don't have appointments, they don't have meetings, they don't have a schedule. It's just work, and when you're done working, you go sit around, talk with people, and eat, So you can go to the next slide. Some of the members of this church actually helped out and paid for Pierre to get a horse. We bought him this young horse, and man, he was so excited because he would have never been able to pay for that by himself. Even though he's such a hard worker, it's just, $1 a day, sometimes $2 is the average wage there. If you're making $2 a day, you're doing pretty good. So, anyways, he was really excited about this horse. You can go to the next slide. And I was excited too. We had a good time. We went to this market about 40 minutes away, and he went and hobnobbed with the Muslims and found this horse that was really good, and so we decided to get him that one. Next slide. So, yeah, he was very, very excited, and this was actually, you can go to the last, yeah. This was actually a few days before I left that we did this, and he told me, before I left, he looked at me and he said, they call me Mathieu, because that's Matthew in French. He said, Mathieu, il faut saluer tous les gens en Amérique avec les deux mains. And that means you need to salute all the people from your church with 2 hands, because that's what they do over there. It's a form of respect. That's how they show respect. So you'll be cruising down the road on your motorcycle, and you'll see an old lady out in the field with no clothes on, just standing there like this, waving at you. And that's respect. That means it's good to see you, and I respect you. So you get that a lot more with the older generation. But so he told me to pass that on to all of you. Next slide. Sadly, this is the only picture that I have right now, but and it's kind of a hard story to talk about, but this was my baby sister. Her name was Ella, and you might not be able to tell by this picture, but she was like the most beautiful little baby ever. She was 14 months old. She had these big eyes and this giant smile that would just light up, except for when I first moved in. She had never seen white skin before, so she would just start bawling every time I came around. And I would try to shake her hand, and she would just bury her head and her face in her mom's chest and just cry. But, I practiced, and after a few months, she would shake my hand, and she would laugh, and I would tickle her. And she was really cute. But after a few months, she started getting sick, and the hut that I was in was connected to to her place, and I would hear her vomiting at night. And so I would ask Pierre in the morning, I would say, "Is Ella okay? I heard her vomiting last night." And he'd say, "Oh, we need to get her some medicine, or I'll take her to the hospital." And he never actually took her to the hospital because he didn't have money, but he would have never asked me for money either. He wasn't that kind of a person. He didn't like asking for things, but he would get some medicine from the market. You can buy any drug that you want basically there, at least that's available in that country. And he would buy her a malaria medication or a parasite medication, and he would try it on her. And they don't really know the correct dosage, so she would get better for a few days, and then a few days later I would hear her vomiting again, crying at night. And so eventually she started getting really skinny. You could see her ribs and everything, and so I said, "Hey, we need to take her to the hospital." And I said, "Don't worry about it, I'll pay for it." So we took her 2 miles down the dirt road to the Adventist hospital there. You can go to the next slide. Okay. All right, go back. I guess I forgot the picture of the hospital. But it's go back, yeah. It's a dark place. It's not really a nice, lit-up, friendly hospital. It's just kind of cement floor and old beds that are torn up, but it's the best that they have. So I took her there. We hospitalized her for a week, and she seemed to be doing better. They released her, so we brought her back. A few weeks later, it started again, so we took her to the hospital again, hospitalized her for 2 weeks this time, treated her with every treatment that they had available at the hospital, treated her for giardia, amoebic dysentery, malaria, all kinds of fungal and bacteria and everything you can imagine. And the doctor said it was a virus. He was pretty sure it was a virus that he couldn't test for, and he didn't have the right equipment or the treatment for it. And so she ended up dying while I was there, which was very sad because I had gotten to know her really well, and she was like a member of my family. But I did learn a lot from the experience. While I was helping her in the hospital, I probably, over the course of 2-3 weeks, I probably put down about $120, $130 for her health. And for us, I mean, that's nothing in a hospital. You know, you go there for 15 minutes and you pay $200. And so I was like, this is the least I can do. And I was feeling pretty good about myself, you know. I can help this girl out and do something that they can't do. And then when she died, it just kind of humbled me and just gave me this feeling of, like, powerlessness. Like, I tried so hard and I did what they couldn't do, but even that wasn't enough. And it just made me realize, you know, sin is powerful, but God is more powerful. And kind of humbled me and made me realize that I just need to rely on God because He's the great physician, and He allowed this little girl to escape a very difficult life over there. And the next thing that she'll see is Him coming in the clouds. So, all right. Oh, you can go back to those pills. That was the treatment for amoebic dysentery. And the treatment for malaria, which I had once, was about 42 pills. Total, probably about 50 pills with the other medication. Go on. So animals. Everyone wants to know, like, what kind of animals did I see? Because they're Africa, you know. Did you have a lion in your yard or zebras? And no, it was cool, but maybe not that cool. But Tchad, there are animals like that in Tchad, but I lived in the village, pretty populated area, about 60,000 people. And so anything that's an animal gets hunted and eaten. And so here are some animals that I did saw. This is my dog. Her name was Tibung, which in Nandere means it's like my friend. And you say, okay, that's a good name, I guess, my friend. But what I was trying to accomplish with this is to get the people to realize that dogs are friends, not food, because they love their dog meat. I mean, they can buy a big dog, not real big, but maybe this big, at the market for $3, and they can feed their family for a couple days. And so it's cheap, and they say it tastes good, and so they eat dog all the time. And if they don't eat the dog, it's a watchdog at their house, which is what our dog was here. And she was a great dog. She knew when someone was drunk, and she would attack them, and really viciously, actually. But she never actually bit anyone hard. She would just kind of go by their feet and just growl real ferociously. And she would attack pretty much any stranger until we calmed her down. So it was a little bit of a hassle. People were throwing bricks at her and stuff, but she made it, and I think she's still doing okay. And I pray that she doesn't get made into a meal, but Pierre promised me that she won't, so she's a really good dog. You can go on. So yeah, she brought all kinds of stuff to me while I was sleeping. That's a big lizard head that she found. And she also brought like full goat skins. I have no idea where she found this stuff. Goat skulls and pig tongues and all kinds of things that she would just find out in the bush, and she'd bring them and show them to me and let me enjoy the crunching noise as she was chewing on them for several hours while I was trying to sleep. Yeah, this was her friend that we had. Some of the missionaries there had this monkey, and these monkeys are actually really common around that area, out in the bush. But you can tell the dog wants to take a nap, and the monkey's just being annoying, which basically sums up what this monkey was all about. It was so annoying. We would be out. I did construction, is what I did. We worked on an airplane hangar and some housing and churches, and this monkey would watch you, and if you were using something that's useful, he would know it, and he would go for that as soon as you put it down. A marker or a level or a square or anything. He knew exactly what you needed, and he would find it and run away with it. You can go on. So that was the most annoying monkey animal. It was the worst pet ever. I would rather have like a pet bumblebee. It was horrible. So don't get a monkey if you ever have the chance. It's a bad idea. Yeah, you can keep going. Okay, this obviously isn't an animal, but that's my friend Kumakoi and me. And you can see his wrist is tied up and he has charcoal on his hand. Maybe you can see it's kind of dark. He just got bit by a scorpion. And normally, if it's within half an hour or an hour, we'll hook him up to the motorcycle battery and we'll give him a shock wherever that sting was, and that'll neutralize the poison and the pain. But this was like 3 hours later, and so, sorry, man, you just got to deal with the pain. It's really painful. Some women that got stung over there told me it was worse than childbirth, so. I had one run across my leg one time, but I never got stung, thankfully, so. Oh yeah, the food that we had in Tchad, that's humorous. It's not actually food. It's just, that was just a bug that I found, and I decided to put it on the food slide. But okay, there are kids that will eat that, but this is what we usually ate most of the time. It's a ball of rice. You grab into it with your hand. You can go to the next slide, and then you dip it into this delicious sauce. Doesn't that look delicious? It's made out of like leaves crushed up and peanut oil, and they find this weird white rock in the ground, like deep down in the ground, and they just crush that up in there. I don't know if they think it makes it taste good or what, but so a bunch of weird stuff in there. I didn't ask, I just ate. And so you just dip it in there and you eat it, and it took a long time to get used to, but I did after a while. And the people love their boule. They will just sit there and just eat and eat, and when they have the opportunity, which most of them eat 1 meal or 2 meals a day. I was lucky enough to have 3. I was really blessed while I was over there. This is one of my breakfasts, which was these 2 balls on the left are what they call gâteaux, which actually means cake in French, but these are not cakes. They're little deep-fried balls of dough, which taste really great when you've just been eating boule for 2 weeks. So I would get some of those sometime and dip it into this tea that they make, which is the sweetness of like maple syrup. Like they dump, it's half sugar. They dump way too much sugar in there, but that's how they like it, and they think I must like it like that too, so that's what they gave me. And then you see some carrots that were probably pulled out of the ground like 2 minutes before that, and not washed. But that was a treat that day, I remember. That's why I took a picture of it. Mangoes. We had a ton of mangoes for about 2 months. I mean, I forgot the picture of the mango tree with all these mangoes on it, but you could eat all the mangoes you wanted. You'd be walking down the street and some kid will hand you a bucket with 30 mangoes in it. And you can literally eat, there's probably enough mangoes in Tchad for everyone to eat 30 every day. There's so many mangoes, at least in that area. So that's me, my friend Danny that went with me. We were enjoying some mangoes there. She ate, most she ate in one day was 20. I ate 12 one day, and I felt sick. And it has other repercussions as well. So you just kind of, after a while, you just settle down and eat maybe 4 or 5 a day. Okay. So churches. We built some churches while we were over there, and you guys helped us with one of those. This is the first one that we built. This was off in a town called Kalo. And that was the first one that we built. You can go on. This was the road that we had to hike on to get there, about 5 miles. You can see there's a motorcycle up front. We did have motorcycle rides, but you can't really drive it through this water. It gets all in the exhaust pipe and messes the bike up. So about 5 miles we had to hike. And we built this church, and they gave us some food to eat, and part of it was this bird that wasn't cooked very well. So I partook in that, and you can see how I felt the next day after throwing up all night with no facilities whatsoever, just a bunch of trees. So I didn't feel too good after that, but we got the church built. So that's my friend Yaga and I screwing in some brackets for the ridge cap on top of the church. And they call it one-day church, but we usually did ours in 2 because if you do the actual one-day church, you just stick the posts into the ground. But we like to cement them in so they'd be a lot stronger, especially with all the dust storms and wind that you get coming through there. So we like to cement them in one evening and then come back the next day and finish up the church. So this is the church that we just built, the one that this church helped actually paid for all of it. So this is us putting up the framework with some onlookers. And the village really gets into this. Like, they really took ownership of this church. It was really exciting to see. They were just really excited that we were building a church there, and they really wanted to be part of it and help in everything they do. This metal framing was kind of a precision job, and so they couldn't help all that much because they're not precise when they work. But some of them helped, and as soon as we were done with the framing, the roofing, and the brickworks, they did all of that. So they really got into that and took ownership of it. You can go on. They helped cart all these bricks over, which Pierre actually made, I think, 3,000 bricks for the church, the man that I live with. And the other 1,000 we bought from some other people. There's Pierre carting over some trusses that I had pre-made at the project. And these are the women and some children. They sat under a tree next to the church while we were building the church, and they just sang songs. So they were getting into the spirit already before we even had the church built, and they were really excited. So that's not all the roof is on, but that was when it was getting near being finished. You can see some of the roofing sheets in the inside that still had to be left. This is another one of our churches that we held, which was just under a tree. But hopefully someday they can put up a one-day church in this town too, because the people love to come out. We went out Sabbath afternoons and just hung out with the people and told them Bible stories and sang with them in their language and tried to teach them some little English songs like God is so good and just simple stuff like that. So this is the first day at our new church, and that's me in the front with our translator, Frederick, which he knew English pretty well. He had studied in Nigeria for 6 months and learned it pretty well. But by the end of my time there, I was able to, at first we would have to have 3 translators, but by the end of my time there, I was able to speak in French, and then he would just translate for me directly into the local dialect, Nandre. So the other projects that we were working on, this is during the week. Well, the churches we did during the week too, but those were kind of just random times when we got a call to make a church, and it wouldn't take very long to put those up. But this is where I worked most of the time. This is the airplane hangar that we worked on. And I've spent many, many hours scaling those rafters, just doing different things, welding and fitting and cutting, and it was a lot of work. But now I don't have a picture, but there's actually a roof on it. And you can see they use these containers, these shipment containers, as part of the wall, which works great. It's really solid, and no extra charge. So this is the house that we were building for Gary Roberts. Maybe some of you know that. And I think he's going to have some volunteers staying there with him. But we spent a lot of hours on that too. It's coming along slowly. You can see the monkey trying to climb into this water tank in the front here. Maybe it's kind of dark, but he's just mischievous. He's bad news. So there's me up on the rafters towards the end of the time, just working, and it got really hot. Towards the end, we had weeks where it was 115, 120 every day. Towards noon, 1 o'clock, and you have to stop by 11:30. You just have to go find shade, because otherwise it's painful being out there, and especially when the humidity started to come in, and you're sweating because you're working. So it got really, really difficult, but we worked through it. Oh, my steel-toed shoes, yes. These are my rainbow flip-flops that I wore for 9 months of construction. Probably not OSHA approved or a good idea, but I wasn't really sure exactly what I was going to be doing before I went, and so I just brought these flip-flops to wear. And it was a bad idea because my toes got really torn up. I would be riding on the motorcycle close to the job site, and my toe would just clip a brick. And so I would be walking around somewhere, and someone would be like, "What's going on with your toes?" And I had like 6 or 7 bloody toes. And so we just laughed about it after a while. So this is my family that I stayed with, that I lived with. Pierre with his wife Clarice, and then there's Rosa by Pierre, and then Ami and Jacob are the ones that I'm hugging. And then that little girl, we couldn't find one of the sisters, but one of their cousins was there, so we had a replacement sister jump in for the photo. But anyways, that was the family, and you can tell I really fit in and look just like them. But I learned a lot from living with them. And there's many lessons that I learned, but I think the most important one that I learned is that I am filthy rich and filthy blessed. Like I said, here someone's poor if they have an old car or something like that, but over there, if someone has an old motorcycle, they're like high society, you know, like, and it's just. I would be embarrassed for this family to see the house that I lived in here, just because I'm just so blessed, and it's weird to explain. It's hard to explain unless you've been there, but I'm sure a lot of you have been overseas and seen poverty, and we don't know what it is here. We don't know what being poor is. Maybe we think we do, but we have no idea. So I think I really got to be thankful for all my blessings, and especially being back here, and also just all the illnesses that you have over there. I was probably sick maybe 30% of the time I was over there, just malaria and dysentery, and I got a fever of 104.7 when I had amoebic dysentery, and that was the only time I think in my life when I've been sick and I've actually been scared for my life. I felt like I was going to die, but God pulled me through. He pulled me through the whole year. Because it was a struggle. It's definitely a wave. Like, you have high points and low points, which is like any time of life, but especially over there I felt it. There was days when I just really wanted some Main Street pizza or a bagel or, you know, applesauce or anything, but there's just not a lot of options over there. So we're blessed. That's the most important lesson that I learned, and also just how much work there is to do. It's a 70% Muslim nation, Tchad, and I think about, I want to say 15% Christian. There's about 1,500 Adventists in the country, which is the size of 2 Texases. Texi? I don't know how you say that. But so there, and this is just Tchad. You know, there's a world out there. It's not just Tchad that needs help, that needs people, and a lot of times, like missionary in your own backyard, I think that's awesome, and I think there's a time and a place for that. But if you do have the chance, and if you feel called, or if you want your kids to get into it, especially if you're young, I think it's a great idea to go while you're still young. Take a mission trip, or if you're tired of your kids, send them on a mission trip or something like that, because you really just, it grows you up, and you get a new appreciation for everything that should be important. So yeah, there's just a lot of work to be done all over the world, and a lot of people that don't know who Jesus is, that don't know that he died for us. And so it's our job to tell them. It's our responsibility, and it's a privilege to have that commission given by Jesus. So that's just a tiny bit of what I experienced while I was over there. I think I'm maybe out of time, but I just wanted to, I have a lot more pictures and videos and stuff if anyone's interested. I don't know when we could do that, but I have a lot more stories too. But thanks for listening, and